NSW, what is the most disgusting thing that has ever happened to you? When I was 16 I had a wound vac on my leg. One of the tubes got clogged with a piece of me and it flooded my bed all night. When I woke up I was covered in smelly rotten fluids. That was myself. As a nurse I see many gross things, but what sticks worse in my mind is this one patient that was admitted during my shift. He looked pretty unkempt and dirty and probably homeless. Him being diabetic I had to assess his feet. I start pulling off his socks and a big cloud of dead skin flakes erupt like spores all around us. In my state of shock I unintentionally gasp, and I inhale a bunch of this dude's dirty dead skin flakes. I politely left the room and ran to wash out my mouth. When I think about it I can still taste them. My aunt worked IQ for 25 years as a nurse. She did a wet doctor dressing on a lady who had a gangrenous foot. She pulled the doctor dressing off, and the lady's toes came with. I've been a CNA for a little over a year and I've seen, and smelled, my fair share of gross as well, haha. EMTFF here. Had a run to a 400-pound woman who was septic because of an infected hernia wound on her stomach. We went to roll her on her side during our assessment and gangrenous pus dumped out of her wound all over my pants. Only time I have ever actually thrown up from a run. My dog ate a bunch of cat turds and vomited it on my pillow at 2 in the morning. Which is maybe not the absolutely most disgusting thing to have ever happened to me, but I sleep like the dead, and nothing will wake me up faster than the sound of a dog herking. Herking. That is the perfect word for it. One Monday morning about 5 of my sailors are climbing all over each other to tell me this story. Meanwhile one guy is desperately trying to stop them and insisting that it's not true. Sir, I am instantly intrigued. So a group of my guys have a weekend-long party at some girl's apartment. Long story short they end up running an unprotected train on said girl. Needless to say there was a lot of booze involved and one of my sailors, Mr. It's not true, sir, passes out in the hallway of the apartment. He's laying there on his back between the bedroom and the bathroom when said girl decides she needs a break from the action. She's walking naked to the bathroom and steps over Sleeping Beauty who is happily snoring away. This is where crap gets awful. As she steps over him a blob of mixed love fluids drops out of her and right into passed out guy's open mouth. It must have been a significant amount because passed out guy wakes up in a panic, gagging and spitting. I nearly gagged when they told me, and to this day the thought of it makes me a little queasy. TLDR. Guy passes out at party. Orgy girl steps over him. Love fluids fall out of her and into his mouth. 5 of your sailors were eager to tell you they ran an unprotected train on the same girl. I will never understand sailors, man. I picked up a bottle of wine in my old best friend's bedroom. I took a swig and realized that it was not wine but urine. He was just too lazy to go to the bathroom so he peed in the wine bottle instead. A lot of people in the Marine Corps smoke or dip tobacco. A lot of the ones that dip will spit into Gatorade or soda bottles. I may have been drunk enough to not pay attention to what I was picking up, and inadvertently drank someone else's dip spit. I also may have been drunk enough to just gut it, take a huge pull off my beer, and then proceed to vomit violently. I once woke up as I was vomiting, laying on my back. I only had time to close my eyes before it all came crashing down. I had to shower, wash my hair, change the bedding and wash the wall from the splashing. My 13-year-old son ran into the bathroom while I was on the pot. He pulled his pants down and was going to fart on me. I swung at him to make him leave. My fist hit him in the butt and he proceeded to unload massive amounts of crap all over my arm and bare legs. I was so shocked and disgusted that I puked in my own lap. He saw all of this and puked on me as well. The aristocrats. I had a cyst near my coccyx burst. The smell from the pus instantly made me puke all down myself, which in turn made me puke, though this time more accurately with about half of it in the toilet and half of it on me. So I was basically covered in puke whilst standing in puke with foul smelling pus running down my ass. 2/10 would not do again. Had a pregnant spider thrown on me in middle school by an butthole, and it had a bunch of babies on me. Spent like 10 minutes getting them off of me. All of my limbs just started to curl up in fear. Well, long story short, I was in the backseat of my dad's car, with my dad driving and my sister sitting shotgun. I was sitting behind my sister. Without warning, my sister rolls down her window, on the interstate mind you, and tried to throw up. I guess she didn't know how aerodynamics work and had half of the vomit fly back and land on my face. Frickin' nasty. Long story short version. Sister puked out window, came in my window and hit me. A buddy and I were drinking at our place with a female friend. I got super trashed and went to bed. I was woken up to her climbing on top of me, trying to straddle my face. I did the polite thing and ate her out, then gave her a poke. She turned to me after and said, "Thanks for finishing me off, buddy." The next morning, how do I taste? I had a fetish for corn dogs when I was 13. I microwaved 3. I ate one. Bit into the second and noticed a weird taste. It was really gross. Almost like snot mixed with puke. I was dipping it in Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. That crap is overpowering. I swallowed down the first bite and looked at the corn dog to see what the frick was up. It was green and black. I cried. It was rotten as frick. It was so gross. I cried and screamed. It was in my tummy, but I also had a fear of puking, so that wasn't an option. It took me 6 years to eat another. I can't do it without peeling away the breading. I refuse to do it any other way. I ended up working in a butcher shop from 1921. Occasionally a piece of meat would fall into the machine that wraps the packages without the wrapper guy noticing. So every month we pulled apart the machine for inspection. Every time I'd find a pork chop or a steak in the same condition as the corn dog. Logic tells me in the factory a corn dog fell on the floor, stayed there for 2 weeks at minimum before some crap stain employee picks it up and throws it back into the cycle. I eat butt a lot, but that corn dog doesn't even compare. Well, I like eating butt, so it's cool, but still. One time I cracked an egg onto a hot griddle and a blackbird fetus started sizzling a putrid stench all over my house. Now I crack each egg into a bowl individually before adding into wherever it's supposed to go. Sorry you had to eat your misfortune. But maybe it's better that you stopped eating 3 corn dogs at a time. It happened to me about 5 hours ago in a public toilet. I had to reach into the toilet paper dispenser to obviously get some TP. Some butthole had put a turd in the dispenser and I unwillingly got a handful of it. People are see. Threw up a burrito into my hands while tripping on acid and didn't know what to do with it, so I threw it on my bed where I tossed and turned all night trying to get some sleep. Our throwing up burrito stories. I threw one up into a cardboard box a new hairdryer had come in, knowing I wouldn't make it to the bathroom. Well, the box completely collapsed when I picked it up to throw it out. Half digested chili verde new carpet is no bueno. Me and my friend were sharing a room at a hotel. We got some pizza and then went to sleep. Middle of the night, I wake up and I'm super hungry, but I don't want to wake my friend up. So I eat some of the leftover pizza in the dark. It tasted a little weird, but I figured that was because it was like 6 hours old. The next day, we get up and the rest of the pizza I'd eaten is covered in ants. So I got an extra dose of protein that night. Better than roaches. I mean, as far as insects go, ants are pretty alright. They don't have huge sack-like bodies brimming with bug juices. They're just little crunchy pizza toppings. Went to the city to see my favorite basketball team play for the first time ever. Caught the train and after the trip I needed to pee. So I went into the train station bathroom, with my brand new Nike basketball shoes by the way, and started to pee in one of the cubicles. There was this huge stench of crap and I assumed it was because someone had just done one in this cubicle. Then all of a sudden, a pair of underpants gets flung under the cubicle wall into my cubicle and they are filled with crap. No joke. It narrowly misses my brand new shoes and the whole situation is so gross I just backed out and ran out of the toilet. Blood clots from my sinuses. I have chronic sinusitis, so weird crap is always coming out of my face. The worst one was when I was in 9th grade and getting over a combination strep throat sinus infection double whammy. I had a massive headache and it felt like my face was going to explode. I was so stuffed up. I was trying to blow my nose to get some gunk out, and then I sneezed really freaking hard, and something moved. The pressure on one side of my face moved down a bit. I blew my nose again and again and the pressure was moving from my forehead, down my nose, until another massive sneeze. The second sneeze resulted in bloody chunks flying everywhere and blood pouring from my nostril with the force of Niagara Falls. For a split second I thought I had actually sneezed part of my brain out. The pressure on one side of my face was gone, but at what cost? I was covered in blood. The bedroom wall I was facing was covered in blood. My bedspread was covered in blood. It looked like I had birthed a monster from my nostrils. Naturally, I screamed for my mom, who came running and also screamed at what looked like a murder scene. I stuck my face in the sink and ran cold water from me while the bloody gunk drained, weeping softly until I was all cleaned up. The next day I was at school, the other side of my face still under intense pressure. Then, once again, I suffer from a massive sneeze, and, once again, something moved. I grabbed the tissue box in the classroom and waited for the inevitable to happen as something moved around in my head. I was full of dread and already had a tissue prepared. Sadly, I wasn't fast enough, sneezed, and, once again, blood shot everywhere from my poor face. Mom came and picked me up early and took me to the doctor, and I spent the rest of the afternoon with lights and tubes shoved up my nose trying to figure out what the heck happened. This still happens from time to time, but never at that scale anymore, and now it's usually just one nostril that the beast inhabits. Heck, it happened just last weekend when I first woke up. Wake up, God I'm stuffy, achoo, murder scene on my pillow, I hate my life. Holy crap, you really sound like you need a good end doctor and probably surgery. My problems were nowhere near as bad as yours and my surgery made all the difference in the world. I rarely ever get sick and when I do I never feel that awful pressure anymore. Just basic sniffles and sore throat. If you're near Cali by any chance PM me. I can recommend my miracle doc to you. I was being a bored teenager and I jumped off a 15-foot roof. I fell forward upon landing into a decomposing, putrid rabbit carcass. I was working at a slaughterhouse once, moving a load of pig into the truck. These were big 150-200 pound pigs that had been skinned and cleaned out. Such animals cannot ever touch the ground, obviously, and there is a metal hanger of sorts that goes between their hind legs and through the split leg bones to hold up the weight. Now, the only way to really move these heavy pigs from the rail system that they dangle from overhead to a waiting truck is to manually wrap your arms around the carcass in a bear hug, deadlift with your legs, and walk the 200-pound load over to the truck, where a crew is waiting with a hook to catch the pig on the rail system they have in the truck. As you can probably tell, from the moment you lift the pig to the moment it is safely on the hook in the truck, nothing can go wrong. Otherwise the pig goes on the floor and has to be destroyed. We had done a good 30 or 40 pigs already, and I reached for the next one and prepared to make a lift. As I started my bear hug and lifted with my legs, this shifted some of the body fluids in the animal. A large pus abscess in the rear leg, which was hanging over my head as I began to lift, burst. About a quarter pint of rancid pus exploded onto my face as I was in the middle of the lift. I couldn't drop it. The crew in the truck gasped in horror as I blindly attempted to walk across the suspended ramp between the building and the truck. With a 200-pound lift in progress, there was no alternative. I had to finish the transit, with no way to get any of this stuff off of my face. My brain decided not to process anything that was happening at this point. I squeezed my eyes and mouth shut as hard as I could and tried to get to the truck with my load blindly. As I shuffled my way across the ramp and finally dropped the pig onto the hook, my crew descended on me with towels to clean the disgusting situation off of me. I had shuffled through half of the building, with pus from my forehead to my chin covering my eyes and mouth, and no one was able to help or interfere in any way lest I drop a rather expensive amount of meat. One of the guys on the truck watching me actually puked. To his credit, my boss gave me a $50 bonus out of his pocket that day. The first time I tried riding back doors with my ex-girlfriend was after dinner and drinks one night. I went in lubed, slowly and things seemed to be going fine. Nothing mind-blowing but hey we tried it. I started going slightly faster and faster and I accidentally pulled out quickly and she crap all over the place. The sight followed by the smell made me instantly vomit all over her back, which caused her to vomit all over the place too. Crap and vomit everywhere. 0/10. Never tried riding back doors again. You literally fricked the crap out of her. To happen to me, waking up to a sick wife from drinking the night before leaving a sink full of vomit. She was on the toilet so she decided sink was the next best option, which I had to clean up. Thing I've done. Probably get so drunk that I started vomiting on myself and ended up having hands full of vomit to tidy up. Maybe we should stop drinking. It sounds like you two need more practice. I can't exactly recall the most disgusting thing, but the other morning I trusted a fart a little too much while I was standing in the kitchen in my old loose pair of boxers making coffee. A nice little 50/50 liquid solid wet slug of poop shot out and made an audible splat on the kitchen floor. Fiance saw it. Dog tried to lick it up. Cleaned it up. Went and threw my underwear away and walked my naked butt with a crap streak stain down the back of my leg into the bathroom for a quick shower. My fiance was about to suffocate, she was laughing so hard. In recent memory, grabbing the handle to exit the restroom in the supermarket, there was a hidden piece of gum on the backside of the handle when I had to pull the door open. My mom had an English bulldog that would wait at the front door until she let him out to pee. One day she was late for their evening routine and my brothers and I were running wild through the house. I managed to pass Mojo while running full speed into the granite covered entryway. As soon as I hit the tile my foot slipped from under me, causing my legs to fly forward to land perfectly on my back in a puddle of hot pee. I found an old CM rag and proceeded to smell check it. I inhaled my own CM that had turned into dust and I started retching and coughing. The dust became stuck in the back of my throat and I tasted myself for 2 hours. When I was born into a toilet. This was during the O.J. Simpson trials, so the hospital staff had their attention to that. My mom had to use the restroom, and during this ordeal I popped out. I never heard the details, but from what my grandmother told me, she was the one who saved me from drowning in poop and water. I was born into crap. I had to remove maggots with iodine from a chicken's butt with tweezers for 40 minutes or so. You actually should give your chickens baths from time to time, contrary to popular belief. Also, iodine makes maggots want to flee a wound, making them easier to remove. But it will ruin that smell for you forever. Chicken lived. I was 15 and had a bunch of friends over to watch a movie and we were eating snacks. My boyfriend pulls me aside and leans in to give me my first ever French kiss. He had braces, and unbeknownst to me, a lot of the trail mix had gotten stuck in them. When he opened his mouth and moved his tongue onto mine, a chunk of chewed snack came with it, and went into my mouth too. Nastiest freaking thing that's happened to me. This is pretty tame. It's saliva and trail mix. While kissing you already got his saliva. Unless you really don't like trail mix. About an hour ago I was biking and I went through a swarm of bugs, or like mosquitoes, I don't know what. Anyway, one got in my eye and I could feel it squirming around until it drowned or whatever. In high school drama class, sitting next to my best friend, someone behind us had, somehow, manages to silently hawk a lodgy and spit it onto her shoulder. We're talking a pretty sizable globule of green and yellow phlegm. I notice it and freak out, which makes her notice it and freak out, and she tried to wipe it off on me. She managed to get a bunch on me, too. We never did find out who did it. Walking down a windy boardwalk in Ocean City, Maryland. Guy in front of me ashed a giant cigarette ash right into my mouth. Burned, tasted salty and bitter at the same time. Ran to the beach to throw up. Was drunk and underage. Got arrested. Bad day. I was sick with something, and while on the toilet my boss was running like a faucet. I suddenly had to vomit. I tried to make it in between my thighs, but it just got all over them. In a huge crowd for Kendrick Lamar at a music festival. Girl beside me is my best friend's girlfriend. Not a huge fan of her, but whatever. She coughs and it turns into her throwing up all down the side of my shirt, right arm and leg. I just looked at her and gave her the most hateful look I could produce. I was working in the dish room in a cafeteria. It had this big trough that recycled dirty water for you to wash dirty dishes before you put them in the dishwasher. One time I was talking to somebody and something fell into the trough. A big splash of water went straight in my mouth. I had to perform a barium enema on an older gentleman. Now, usually, this entails inserting a balloon-lined hose into the rectum and inflating the balloon to prevent an accidental release. Fill the colon with a milky barium solution and take radiographs. In a perfect world, after the imaging, you can release the pressure on the balloon. Tell the patient to hobble to the bathroom nearby and relieve the pressure. In this particular case, The patient had a rather large section of his colon removed and defecated through a stoma in his side into a colostomy bag, so balloon ideas right out the window. I was provided with this funnel looking device that was inserted into the stoma, and I was expected to hold enough pressure on it to prevent said barium from leaking out. Sadly, I was unsuccessful and it just sounded like a bad idea from the get-go. What went in looking like a nice clean milky substance was slowly oozing out from around the funnel device with the appearance and consistency of oatmeal. I asked for more towel sheets to help absorb some of the material, but it was a losing battle. I had a stranger's crap up past my glove line, in my gloves, dripping off my x-ray table and pooling up around my feet. Definitely not a fun day at work. Making out with someone when we were both really drunk and she ended up puking a bit in my mouth while we were kissing. I work with children who have autism and I kneeled in a puddle of someone's pee the other day. I had to wear pee-soaked pants for the rest of my shift. I had a D&C because I had been menstruating for nearly 6 months solid. In case you missed it, this means I am extremely anemic at this point. Procedure is following a diagnosis of PCOS. So I am also taking metformin. This is important because I had only been taking metformin for a couple of weeks and it's time to increase the dosage following the surgery, and because I still have no blood in my body and I'm super weak and now cramping like crazy, I take a few days off work. Due to other circumstances in life at the time, my husband and I are staying with my parents for a few weeks. Husband goes off to nerd convention with his brother and sister-in-law. I didn't want to go, but I also knew that there was no way I would feel like it only a few short days following my surgery. Plus, that same day, my medication was increased. So I am sitting in the chair in the living room, watching a movie or something with my mom. Husband is gone. Dad is gone. So it's just us. I'm still not eating much of anything. Post-procedure, everything hurt too much to try and have normal bodily functions. So I followed advice from doctor and ate soft foods. I'm also drinking a lot of fluids. So I am just sitting there, and without any sign warning anything, my muscles just decide it's not worth attempting to control this, and I realize I'm about to have an emergency situation. So I stand up, and I had a flannel sheet wrapped around me cause I was chilled, and I walk calmly to the bathroom where the moment I close the door, I am nothing but liquid, and everything just rushed out of me without hesitation and it's everywhere. Blood and nasty brown liquid without the slightest hint of form. It's all over the toilet, the floor, the rug, my body, my PJS, the sheet, everything. And because everything is already so awful, I started to vomit. So now there's that thrown into the mix as well. I finally get my bowels under control, get my gag reflex to calm down, and I just start doing anything I can to wipe up the disaster I've created. It took me a good half hour to clear the evidence, then make it naked to the washer, wrap myself in another sheet, then get to the full bathroom so I could actually wash myself. Then of course, I have to get back to the half bath to actually disinfect and wash the surfaces. Needless to say, post-procedure and liquid and soft food diet and increased dose of god-awful metformin equals the absolute most disgusting thing that has ever happened to me. 2 years ago I had a surgery that required me to have my mouth wired shut. When I woke up from the surgery, the painkillers made me throw up, and I couldn't open my mouth. I think Kanye wrote an entire album like this. I had an allergic reaction to cashew oil in the pesto I used for a pesto pasta dish, so I get to the hospital and they put me in a room in 5 minutes. They gave me a garbage can for puking in. I puked about 7 times until it was bile. I had to hold my puke bucket for 4 hours. That buildup of puke smell is the single most disgusting thing I had to go through. I can never forget that smell. Stepped in a puddle of watery crap. Why is IT on the floor? In a public restroom. Absolutely repulsive. People these days have no freaking idea how to use a toilet. I dropped my iPod into a public toilet. One of those chunky big ones from the good old days. Picked it out with my hand. Still did not work as was not waterproof. 0/10 was not worth it. Probably yesterday while an old guy proceeded to play pee loudly and then decided to masturbate in full view of everyone on a train. Images burnt into my brain of an old greasy dude jacking off. Me and my little brother shared bunk beds. We had it the style where the bottom bunk was perpendicular to the top bunk shaped as an L. Woke up in the middle of the night to his puke being launched into my face. I remember spitting out chunks of his dinner. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.